like Melaleuca, their requirements you have to buy at least this much every month to be a quote partner. That is kind of a problem. A lot of companies kind of deceive people into this idea of big money, easy money.
I think with sales, the only people that do like astronomically well are doing it in kind of like a shady way.
Just slicing a penny in half, like, you know, like, whoa, holy shit, my scissors can't do that. You know, I mean, I don't know how many times in cooking you have to deal with pennies embedded in your food, but
welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford. We would love it if you would like, share, and subscribe to the channel.
whew, wow, man, I might need to be alone for a minute. It was sultry, man. So I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and I'm not going to do that voice this time. Don't forget, we write our own music. It's available on iTunes, and Spotify, and stuff. And at the end of this episode, timestamp down there, there's going to be a piece of a new song, something you've probably never heard before, unless you already know us very intimately. And you can go to our website. It's ksmvidcast.com. And so Casey, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, you remember many years ago when we were roommates, and I got into selling that Melaleuca stuff, and like before that, like the Cutco knives and stuff.
Yeah.
So a fan had suggested the idea of talking about like the multi-level marketing scams and related things like Cutco is like vector marketing or whatever, but,
yeah. I mean, I don't know that they're all. A lot of multi-level marketing does feel very scammy, and there's certainly issues with it, but I don't think it's all scams. Like, because I speaking of Melaleuca, I was actually involved in that too, but at the time I got involved with it, I wasn't really like a people person and didn't really do sales. So, in order to maintain your status, you had to buy a certain amount of product, which we'll have to discuss that because that's an issue too. But the products actually were good. Like my favorite thing was the laundry detergent. It worked so well. Like a tiny little cup would do a whole load of laundry. I was like, wow, it actually cleans it. It's really good. It smells good. Like, this is good stuff.
Concentrated cleaner that was like 2 ounces, and it lasted me like over a decade.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we should probably talk about Mookie at some point too.
Mookie.
Remember the guy that came in when we were running PGT, that came in and was like, opened a bottle of cleaner and just started drinking it in front of you? and then he was like going door to door selling like spray cleaners. I think it was called Vantage or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And he was like, it can clean anything. And you're like, okay, how about that printer over there that's covered in ink? And he's like, yep, it could do it. And he sprayed it on there and wiped it off. And you were like, oh shit, sold. Like we bought a bunch of that stuff. I love that stuff. That has been I still have a tiny little bit left, and that is the best cleaner I have ever used, honestly. Like,
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, and that company's still in business too to this day, which kind of tells you their product is kind of legit.
Mhm.
They're not a fly by night kind of thing. But yeah, it's not advantage, it's advantage, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. There's no D in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
so,
mean, places like that, you know.
I will put the D in it. Sorry.
Places like that in Melaleuca, I think, were pretty above the board because Melaleuca wasn't pushy, like you have to sell this much and whatever.
No.
Um, you know, I would get like a $3 check every month because they like hand you a customer basically. And, you know,
Mhm.
of course, that didn't balance how much you had to spend every month to maintain.
Yeah, I think it was like
but
at the time, I think it was like $50 a month or something.
50,
Which
100, something like that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, me being a single, like living at my parents' house when I signed up, $50 a month, there was no way, but if I were head of household or had a family or something, like, yeah, that
Well,
you could
it
spend
was,
on
it,
cleaners and products and stuff, and
yeah, it wasn't hard for me because a lot of it was stuff that I would buy at the grocery store anyway. So I was like, well, I'll just buy their brand, you know.
yeah, and their stuff actually was okay.
Yeah.
um uh, is Kirby multi-level marketing too?
I don't know a lot about that's the vacuum one, right?
Yeah, vacuums. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about that one. Um, and then there's the big ones like Tupperware and Avon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the Cutco one, they got in some deep shit. And I don't remember exactly what for, but it was after I was doing it because they didn't used to sell in stores or kiosks or anything. It was strictly word of mouth, and they called this vector marketing. And it was the weirdest shit ever. Like I had to sit through these classes and, you know, not only learn about the knives, but learn all the like rules for who we could, you know, display them to and sell them to and stuff. And it was like all the customers had to be like over 27 and married. And like if you absolutely couldn't think of any more married couples over 27, they would allow for, well, like single people over 27. And I was like, I think I was like 19 at the time. It's like, how many people do I know over 27? You know?
Yeah. At our age now, that would be like, most of our friends are like, they have families, they're well over 27 or more, like it's not that unreasonable to expect people in your circle. Yeah, because then if you're like 19, it's like, well, your friends are kind of in the same age bracket, other than maybe your friends' parents or something. But then at that point, I guess you'd have to go door to door, maybe.
Well, no, you weren't allowed to. It had to be people you knew. And then after you gave them your spiel, you had to pester them for referrals in that, with that criteria, right? Like,
that's such a arbitrary line to draw. Like, that's so strange.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it came from data, because their rationale was they wanted, two income families that made decisions together and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it kind of made sense, but it was still super weird to like restrict it to that. It's one thing to be like, aim for this, but they were like, you have to.
Yeah, hard line, like you can't go below that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense. And actually, just as a side note, Cutco knives are pretty nice.
Oh yeah, I still use them. Like, they're the shit.
I've got a couple of them myself that didn't come from a salesperson. Yeah, they're great. Like, not the best knives in the world, but definitely really good. Like, the thing is, like, if you use knives, Cutco is a good way to go. So it's not like you're not wasting money. Yeah, you can go to Walmart and buy a kitchen knife for like $5 or $10 or something like that. But it's gonna it's not going to last like Cutco. Cutco definitely is something kind of like Kirby vacuums. Like it's an heirloom sort of thing that you're going to pass down to the next generation.
Yeah.
In theory. But as far as like the practices of the company go, like that's something that's kind of like, well, I don't know. I mean, I've got mixed feelings about it. Like the whole multi-level marketing, like, okay, it sounds good on paper, but in practice, I think it doesn't really, like, there's only a certain proportion of people in that system who actually do really well. And companies are inclined to highlight those. They're like, oh, you're going to make $100,000 a year selling Cutco knives.
Yeah.
Because this guy over here and that lady over there, you know, like, yeah, that is possible, but you have to bust your balls to do that.
You got to be a
get to
certain
that
type
point.
of person. That's the part that they don't tell you, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like, and I'm still not that type of person. I'm just not cut out for sales at all.
Well, and the fact that the company will just accept anybody without vetting people for their sales capability it does kind of raise a few red flags, I guess.
Yeah, that's the shady part, right? Like they're not discriminating enough, which sounds weird, right? Like they're basically just trying to get a whole bunch of like cheap marketing or free marketing, depending on how you want to look at it, because they're making you pay for your own like knives to go show and stuff. And you just get like a cut of whatever gets sold. And so like they're shelling out like nothing. And
well, yeah, and now that, to be fair, that is kind of how supply chain systems work. Like if you're a retailer, you do have to, in a lot of cases, buy the product that you're going to put on the shelves to sell. So as a salesperson, having to do that doesn't seem so weird. But the problem I have with it is the regularity of that requirement. If you just said, if they were like, okay, everything that you sell, you have to buy from us wholesale price. So, you know, let's say a set of Cutco knives, whatever set, well, for the sake of the conversation, let's say it's $100. You buy it for $100, you can sell it for $300. So if you sell it, you make a lot of money. You net $200. That's good. Well, and then taxes and other stuff. But you'll make some money on that. But having like Melaleuca, their requirements you have to buy at least this much every month to be a quote partner. That is kind of a problem. And it's kind of, in my mind, what supports that whole, because it is kind of like a little bit of a I guess it's kind of a pyramid scheme kind of thing, like a what do you call it? The name escapes me. I should probably have more beer. Ponzi, yeah, it's kind of Ponzi sort of thing, like where like the layers underneath supply the layers above. And
yeah, like you would get a cut of the commission of the people that you brought on, and then a cut of the commission that they get, and like
like I mean, in principle, I could see how that makes sense, especially for a company, being that marketing and having stores to sell things and dealing with merchandising and product placement and stuff, like that can be a huge problem. So if you can just have a system where it, like, all the participants provide that structure, I mean, I guess it could work, but the implementation is the problem, I think. And especially the kind of like propaganda angle, I guess. It's like they kind of deceive, not everybody, but a lot of companies kind of deceive people into this idea of big money, easy money, right? You know, like, oh, you could make up to this amount of money. You could make up to 200,000. You can make $1 million a year. Look at our top salesperson. They make $1 million a year selling Melaleuca. You know, yeah, maybe they do. But that is probably not going to be you unless you jump through a lot of hoops or just have a lucky break or something like that. And that's the thing, that it's like they entice people into this system, which kind of becomes a trap. Honestly, it's kind of in a little bit, in a way, it almost feels a little bit like payday loans. Kinda.
Yeah, kinda. I honestly, like, I think with sales, the only people that do like astronomically well are doing it in kind of like a shady way,
or a like very unique and remarkable way, like Mookie, like coming into a place and just drinking the product, like you know, like that's, you got balls, man. You know, like
I guarantee you that was probably a lot like Cutco though, where they tell you like, hey, this is safe to drink, so just drink it. You know, like it's not like that was his idea or anything, like, because with Cutco we were like cutting pennies in half with the scissors and stuff. You know, like we all had a gimmick that we were taught.
But the thing is, like, you can do that with a $2 pair of EMT shears as well. So it's not really proving much. But it is, you know, from a sales standpoint, from a, you know, getting your foot in the door or some kind of pitch like that gets people's attention. Just slicing a penny in half, like, you know, like, whoa, holy shit, my scissors can't do that. You know, I mean, I don't know how many times in cooking you have to deal with pennies embedded in your food, but I mean, I guess, yeah. I don't know. It's.
I feel like the whole thing though is just like forced word of mouth. Like word of mouth should really be like merit based.
Yeah.
And, you know, organic.
Yeah, a product should sell itself if it's really good. People talk about it and they know it.
Yeah.
You don't have to shove anything down anybody's throat or knock on doors or something. Like, it should be like, okay, the ice cream man, right? You don't have to knock on doors to sell bars of ice cream. All you have to do is play Little Brown Jug on your little Jeep, you know, and drive down the street on a hot summer day, and the kids are going to come running. And, you know, like, because everybody's like, oh man, it's ice cream man. He's got ice cream.
We totally need to get your like Supra running and just play the kitchen sink microscopy theme and drive down the street, and like nerds will come running and like have like 2-hour conversations in the street with us.
And I need to convert the back to like have a couch in it or something so everybody can sit down, and there's like a cooler with beers. A portable KSM. That'd be awesome. And then my air-powered machine gun. Like, oh, hey, do you want to fire this thing? Like, go ahead and like. Oh man. Yeah. Did I ever mention me and my friend, our experience, our weird, sketchy, multi-level marketing experience?
Was that like the seminar thing you sat through? Or?
Yeah. Okay. So those who don't know, the company was called Equinox. They're not around anymore. Well, you all you have to do is look up the history of that company. Not the Chevy Equinox, but the company called Equinox. And I don't even remember what it was they sold. It was kind of like a mishmash of random things. But so one day my friend calls me up and he's like, hey, you want to make some money? And I'm like, well, yeah. Like, hey, I got this opportunity. There's this seminar we can go to and sign up for this company and do all this stuff. And so it turns out it was Equinox. And so we go to this industrial park kind of location. I think it might have been in Fife, possibly. Just some no-name place with a bunch of offices and spaces and stuff like that. And clearly this place was not their actual office. This was a place they rented, which was one red flag. And, I think I was probably like 19 at the time too. So, but even then I had enough sense to know that like, this is weird. And so we go in there and there's a bunch of people standing around, and they had this spray, this like, it was like a Banaka cylinder or something. And everybody was like spraying it in their mouths or something. And they were handing those things out to everybody. I think it was probably some kind of, I don't know quite what was in it, but I'm guessing it was like some kind of ephedrine something or other, because everybody was like fucking hopped up. They were like all excited, and they kept spraying this stuff in their mouths. And we sit down, and this guy goes up there and is talking about sales stuff and blah 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 and giving the spiel. And I mean, at first it seemed okay, but the longer it went on, it got more and more like iffy, I guess. And to the point where my friend and I were kind of like looking at each other like, this is a bit weird. And it almost felt like a cult. Like the people around us were in a cult and we were the newcomers. That's kind of how we felt. Like imagine if you're the only humans at like a vampire convention or something like that. That's kind of how we felt. And we were like looking at each other like, and then halfway into it, they're like, oh, time for a break. And everybody goes, and they had like some sodas and some cookies and stuff. And people like spraying the stuff in their mouths. And I was like, I think we should probably get out of here. And my friend's like, yeah, I think so. And we were like, hey, we're going to go use the bathroom. And we walked out the doors, and they were like, leg it. And we just ran like, this is on the second story. We ran down the hall, busted open the doors, ran down the stairs, hopped in his car and started the car and got out of there, and never looked back. And I feel fortunate that we did, because there's some shady is the nice word for Equinox. Yeah.
Like what's the gist of what they got like taken down for?
I don't remember, because that wasn't like in the 90s. And I don't remember much from the 90s, man. But you can look it up. I'll see if I can pull that up real quick.
I wonder if there's a way we could multi-level market our channel.
Yeah. Well, I don't, like I said, I don't think the concept is bad. Like I there's some sound reasoning in there. Like some of it makes sense. It just depends on how it's done. It's just unfortunate that a lot of companies are founded and they take advantage of people, when it's like, you don't have to take advantage of people. Like everybody could be doing pretty well. Like if you're not a dick,
Yeah.
Just don't be a dick.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird that like these places that are somewhat unscrupulous, like Cutco, I mean, they're still around and they do things a little differently now. So I think they've cleaned up their act. But the point is, like, they actually do have a good product. So, like, why bother doing shifty, shady shit in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. Like, the Tupperware thing. Like Tupperware is good stuff. I mean, it's quality.
Except for the fact that like you'll always end up with more lids than actual like containers.
That's true.
What's
Yeah.
up with that?
Well, that's user error though. So as far as Equinox goes, I mean, just looking at their the Wikipedia entry, it was founded in 1991. Came under scrutiny for a number of improprieties and illegal acts after numerous individuals filed criminal and civil complaints. Doesn't specify what it was. However, in 2000, the FTC issued a notice that Equinox International settled a court case with a penalty of $40 million in restitution, and they closed in 2001. So something happened. I don't know quite what it, I mean, that's just like the 5-second Google.
Wow. Huh.
Yeah, I don't know that their products were really that good. But yeah, like I think that multi-level marketing can be a reasonable thing because if you look at how it works in principle, a lot of people benefit. You know, everybody benefits on every level. The longer you stick with it, the more you benefit. And it's very easy to come into and get started. And even the people that are noobs, you know, they can like make a little bit and they contribute to the whole system. But like your Cutco example, the limitations of age ranges and things like that, and how it's structured, I think that's a huge problem. Is it bad? Like, well, I don't know that it would be bad to be involved in things. Well, okay. It's not bad. Don't sign any contracts. Never sign a contract. That's
Oh man, we could do a whole episode on contracts. Like, I hate contracts.
well, they're the way to do things in the absence of the state. But the way people get kind of like coerced into thinking like, oh, you have to sign this. No, simply read it. By the way, did you know you're allowed as the contract signee or signer, the person accepting the contract, to amend the contract. So if you disagree with something, you can make changes to it, hand it to the other person. If they accept it, then they can sign it. Then you sign it and everybody's okay. So if you don't agree to certain terms, you can just strike them out, change them to whatever you want. And if it's okay with the other person, then you know,
Yeah,
you can make that agreement.
it's never okay with the other person though, because the whole point of writing a contract these days is to get exactly what you want and not budge an inch.
yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the whole thing. It's like, honestly, contracts have their purposes, but read them. You know, read the print.
And you can't actually do that anymore because there are no paper contracts anymore. Everything's online. And you can't amend those. They don't make it possible to amend those.
So, you know, I think that's actually illegal.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, there's a lot that's legal that should be illegal and vice versa. So
yeah, things exist in kind of like a gray area, I guess, in that regard.
Yeah.
But you know, that a word of advice to the viewers out there, you know, be very careful with contracts. Like, read what they say. Read the contract. If it's a popular sales tactic, a gimmick, if you will, the time limited offer, right? Like, oh, no, you can't read this because it expires in 10 minutes or something. Yeah, bullshit. Bullshit. Read the contract, sit down and read it. If the other party won't let you read it and amend it, well, at least entertain your amendments, then walk away. Don't even bother. Yeah. It God, oh man. If only I knew the things that I know now when I was younger.
Well, remember when we owned a business and we had to do the merchant service thing? And we ended up having to pay like $3,000 for a $200 credit card terminal, and then it was out of code or whatever, so like we had to pay extra money and have it upgraded and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That was such a racket.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Those kinds of systems. I mean, it's really hard.
I kind of think contracts are worse than multi-level marketing, really. Like
I don't know.
The shit you can pull with those, like,
well, contracts are the way to make agreements, like legally binding agreements on your own. And I think that's fair, as long as the problem is the contracts these days are written by millionaire lawyers. They like, it's the language is incomprehensible, very difficult to understand, and all these little details and stuff like that like the average person can't possibly understand. It's not like 5 sentences that are very clear and easily comprehensible. No, it's like all kinds of stuff where even the meaning of a particular word is vital, but the meaning of the word legally is entirely different than it is in a common sense, like what the average person might think of that word as meaning.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem. It's like, I don't want to involve lawyers. Yeah, lawyers and politicians, like they're the worst of the worst. I mean, no offense to lawyers. You have politicians. I'm not gonna. But lawyers, there are some good ones out there. But you shouldn't have to have a lawyer to conduct your day-to-day business.
Right.
Like you and I should be able to drop a contract, and we just say, hey, we agree to these things, and you sign and I sign, and that's that. Like, okay, yep. I lent you this money, or I gave you this thing, and you agree to pay me this amount back, or whatever, something like that. That's what contracts are for.
Yeah. Well, it's legalese that's the problem. You're right, because the whole point of legalese is to think of situations that kind of suck for the person offering the contract and wording a way around it in such a way that you can't tell what they're trying to subvert. Like,
yeah,
it's just sneaky, weaselly language to point to later and be like, look, the convoluted language here is quite clear that,
well, especially when some particular term can be interpreted in multiple, even contradictory ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you just pick one depending on the situation. Like, oh no, I meant this. And then in this other situation, oh no, I meant that. Like, that's bullshit. And that's the thing. Yeah, legalese, it's terrible. Like, do you have to have like Black's Law Dictionary to read every contract that you sign? Oh man, it's a mess. It's a way to confuse people. And the terminology is so complex and so obscure, like arcane verbiage that no common person uses, but they do in contracts, and apparently that's good enough. Like, well, okay, well, in a court case around a particular contract, do they account for the fact that they're using this antiquated, incomprehensible terminology? Like, no, they don't. I mean, is the average person able to understand what is being said? And I would argue in 99% of like mainstream contracts, nobody's able to understand what's being said, not even lawyers and judges, let alone the people who give you the contract to sign, or you who sign the contract.
Yeah, the salespeople haven't read the contract either.
No.
If you wanted to amend it, they wouldn't be the person to talk to. So
I'll tell you what. Next time you sign a contract, go ahead and amend it, and you will blow people's minds. Just cross something out and just write in your own shit, and they'll be like, "What? You can't do that." Oh, yes, I can. Like, it's fun. It's a form of entertainment for me to amend contracts. But that is what contracts are all about. It's originally in concept, it's a like give and take kind of thing. Like you propose, it's kind of like deciding on your wages for a job, right? You say, hey, I want this much. And they're like, well, we're willing to give you that much. And you're like, well, I need this much. And then, you kind of like go back and forth and you meet somewhere in the middle. And then you're like, okay, that's good. If it were done that way, there would be no pre-drafted contracts, right?
Mm-hmm. It would just be like, you would sit down and you would go over like, the salesperson would be well-versed in the terms that are like hard, fast must-haves for the company.
Yeah.
And then the wants that the company has. And that's the stuff that you can wiggle on, and you would sit down and draft a contract out of scratch, I'd be fine with that because then everyone is like involved in the making of the contract, which is
exactly,
which is the only fair way to have a contract.
It is. And that's how it used to be. But nowadays it's kind of one-sided. Like the person, if you're Comcast, right? The contract is the contract. Like it's printed on with a laser printer on paper. It must be like it's immutable. You can't change it. Like, why not? Why not? What says? Who says?
And the law is just so dead fast on being like, well, you've signed something that is a contract, so like, fuck you,
well, and because signing a contract is kind of a big deal, and
it's dumb.
Well, it's only dumb because they're like the average person doesn't know how contracts work and ought to work, that it is a flexible device basically for agreement. And we've been kind of, well, like I said, propaganda before. I mean, it is kind of propaganda that, in order to sign up for Comcast, you have to sign this contract. Okay, I'll sign the contract after you agree to my amendments, and if you don't agree to them, well, hey, I'm walking. I don't need your shit, like that's how people should work. And that way you have tailor-made kinds of things to different people's needs, whether it be the company or the customer, whatever. But I like your idea that you sit down with somebody and you hash out what everybody wants. Obviously, Comcast, they have a service to sell you. They want a certain amount of money. You want a certain service, and you're only willing to pay a certain amount of money. So that you compromise, right? You agree somewhere in the middle, and it's like any kind of negotiation. That's what it should be. But no, you go into Comcast or something like that, and you sit down at some table, and some pimple-faced fuck is trying to sell you a Comcast service. They don't even know what it is, and well, you got to sign this paperwork and sign up, and it's like 40 pages of bullshit, confusatory language. Like,
well, and I understand why they would prefer to have just a contract that never gets changed, because it makes it easier on them to handle disputes.
Yeah.
Whereas if everyone had their own like custom made contract, it would be a pain in their ass. And
well, yeah,
know,
when you have like millions of customers, you'd have millions of variables there. You don't even know.
yeah,
Consistency. It's good for the company to be like, okay, we know every customer has agreed to these terms. I could see that. But when the terms are nonsense or harmful to you as a customer, you don't have to agree to them. Like,
and I think that's why it's good that a number of years back the government came and said, like, hey, it's like you can't do this anymore. Where, you know, Comcast, for instance, would be like, well, if you're 11 months into your contract and you break it, then you have to pay us 12 months worth, you know, and it's like, sorry, that's pretty screwed up, you know, like, you know, and yeah, that's the thing. It's like if everyone had a custom contract, it would get pretty impossible or not really cost effective to manage all that.
It would get a little bit confusing. It wouldn't necessarily be practical.
Yeah. And I think that's where the happy medium comes from in having a regulatory body, is that there's kind of an advocate for both sides in a way, you know, saying, okay, well, it's fair for you to have a contract that has certain protections for your company, but it's also fair to like not screw over these poor people if they have to break their contract because they lost their job or something, you know?
Well, kinda. I mean, I mean, in theory that makes sense, but in practice, the regulatory body is tied with Comcast as well. So I don't know that I would trust.
I don't know that I don't know about that.
Well,
is there proof of that?
Well, we'll have to. People are going to have to watch the future episode about lobbying. I mean, it certainly happens. It all comes down to you at the end of the day. Like, you have to be vigilant. You have to be knowledgeable about things and be careful. And, you know, the Comcast thing, the early contract breakage and how you have to pay fees and stuff. Well, you know, the reason for that is because of introductory rates. They give you a really nice deal. Oh man, it is a sweet deal. You've got unlimited internet, you've got phone, you've got cable television and all this stuff for like $50 a month for 12 months. And then after that, it goes to $299 a month. You know, like, and that's the thing. It says it in the contract. It has to. Because, well, that price is enforced by the contract. So it has to be in there. So all you have to do is read it. And if that sounds like bullshit, or if you're starting to get weird vibes like Equinox level stuff, walk away. You know, you don't have to sign anything ever. You shouldn't. And if somebody's telling you there's some kind of timeline, like, oh no, you better sign it. You know, if the salesperson's getting a little bit sketchy or wigged out, like if you want to read the contract, well, that is the biggest red flag there ever was. That's the time where you don't even want to read the contract. You just want to stand up and walk the fuck out of that place. Not even worth it. Voice of experience, I guess. Yeah, Granddaddy Eric is gonna, or Uncle Eric, I guess, is gonna impart my wisdom to you.
Yeah. Yeah, contracts have always rubbed me the wrong way. It's just like anything, it's a tool and it can be used for good or evil. Right?
Yeah,
but,
yeah, it is. Yeah,
you know, more often than not, like what it's evolved into as just kind of a standard is never good.
No, because people are not inclined to sign or not inclined to read contracts before they sign them.
But I mean, like,
the salesperson just says, hey, you know, it's okay. This. They say a bunch of bullshit, which doesn't matter. They're like, hey, go ahead and sign, because, yeah, it basically says it in the contract. And so people are like, and they sign their name. Well, that's it. You've just signed your soul away to the devil or something like that.
Well, like when we had a business, we came up with some contracts in like normal English with no lawyers involved, and we just thought of like practical situations that might arise and address those. But you look at some of these contracts and they go into like what to do if a person dies and this and that, and it's like, how many people are really dying and like leaving you really screwed over? You know, like there were times in our business where like we met with an unfortunate situation where we didn't get paid, but it's like we kind of weighed the options, like, do we pursue this or do we just write it off? You know?
Yeah,
like,
is it worth the effort? You know?
Yeah. But these companies like build it into their contract to like go after every motherfucker's decedents, you know? Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're dead? Well, let's screw over your kids. Like,
well, you did sign the contract after all. Well, and that's why I say, like, see, what we did was like old school contracts, like the way it used to be done. Plain English, plausible scenarios, easily understood things. And unfortunately, we're in the minority.
yeah.
But that's not to say like people should avoid that. Like that is a goal that every company should strive to achieve. Something easily understandable.
I think a compromise would be if companies were, you know, because you mentioned like introductory pricing and, you know, whatever perk it is. I think it would be awesome if companies just made a standard practice of offering multi-level contracts. Like you can choose from contract A, B, C, or D, depending on the terms that are most agreeable to you. But you know, they're going to be differences in your perks too.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
I think
like
that's totally fair. Yeah.
And that right there gets around like super customizing each and every contract or whatever. It's just, you know, you take a glance like, oh, this person opted for contract D, you know, this is how we proceed. Like that would be smart.
Yeah, and certainly from a sales standpoint, it would be too, because you know if more people are gravitating towards contract D, then that must be the most popular one, and that's the one you want to focus on.
She wants the contract D.
I got your vitamin D right here. Oh man, it's not that kind of episode. We're talking about contracts. Oh,
she wants the contract D.
Well, and now we could talk about marriage as being contract as well. Marriage. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we necessarily need to go into that, but I mean, it is kind of a contract.
But
considering
we did technically start on multi-level marketing, so
yeah,
it might be a little far off.
Well, I mean, it's kind of related, but I guess yeah, that we already kind of addressed that a bit. I almost had a Freudian slip there.
Will.
Yeah. So getting back to multi-level marketing, any other thoughts you have on that?
Well, we didn't really go over like the door-to-door aspect, like the Avon lady sort of thing, or
Yeah.
like, and yeah, I don't know if there's a whole lot different there other than the fact that it's like kind of annoying. You know, the whole cold call aspect. And
yeah, I mean, if you aren't interested in the product, like if somebody's trying to sell me candles or something like that, and they're knocking on my door, you know, at 8 at night or something like that, and I open the door and it's like somebody like, hey, you want some candles? Like, okay, no, just chill out. I don't need that. If I wanted candles, I'd buy candles. or whatever, vacuums or knives or something. I do have to say, I kind of feel bad that there's not that much door-to-door sales nowadays. Like, I think it's kind of a nice thing. And if I see somebody knock on my door, well, I look outside, and if they seem not so sketchy, of course, I'm always armed. Always got the LCP on hand. But if they seem okay, like, I'll open the door and I'll entertain anybody's sales pitch. Like, because maybe it could be like Mookie, where you have a product for sale that I actually want. Like, it's possible. It's sad that door-to-door sales isn't really a thing because nobody opens their doors now. People are very fearful.
It's probably because of the multi-level religioning, like Jehovah's Witnesses coming to your door and stuff.
Well, did I tell you? I think I told you about the Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
Maybe. Everyone's got stories about that.
Oh yeah. And normally I don't open doors. At least I didn't back in the past. But gonna need another beer for this one. So back when I was living at my parents' house, when my mom was still alive, bless her soul. So a friend of mine was supposed to stop by the house. So I was expecting somebody to knock, and I was thinking it was going to be my friend. So there was a knock at the door. Somebody knocked, and I was like, oh, I ran to the door, didn't even look through the peephole, just flung the door open. And it was like a guy and a girl standing there. And I'm like, hello? And they were like, hey, can we tell you about Jesus? And I'm like, oh, fuck. And so it was some Mormons and stuff, and they were like, oh, the blah 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 and the stuff, and I'm like, oh well, okay, go ahead and come inside, because I don't know, I was feeling adventurous that day. So I invited them in. They sat down on the couch, and they started telling me about their faith and this stuff, and I was like, let me tell you about my understanding of the universe. And I gave I gave kind of a Picard-esque speech, like talking about how I see the universe, like the origins of God and things that have led me down different paths and all this stuff. Just kind of like walking back and forth and talking. And they were like fixed to me, like watching me and like listening and stuff. I was going into like quantum mechanics and everything, and at the end, they were just like, would you like a brochure? And they handed me a brochure, and I was like, oh, thanks. And they're like, that was really interesting. Okay, well, I guess we'll be moving on now. So have a good night. And I feel like it's kind of like a Hugh thing. Like, I might have changed some people out there.
My experience was at a bus stop. I've never had too many door-to-door experiences because I've never lucked out in this, but I would see them walking through the neighborhood, and I would just take off all my clothes and wait for them to come to the door, and they never do. But I was waiting for a bus transfer one day on my way home from school, and there was a couple of the dudes in suits without jackets and bicycle helmets with no bicycles, and they were like, hey, do you want to talk about whatever it is they say, Jehovah or whatever? And I was like, I won't waste your time. I'm an atheist. And they got really excited, and they were like, really? Well, we would love to tell you about. And I'm thinking, like, do you guys get extra points for converting atheists, or like?
Yes, I think they do. Uh,
And it really is kind of like a marketing scheme the way they do that, right?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
And I've always been really skeeved out by that too, just as much as the multi-level marketing stuff.
Mhm.
I think it's like it's pushy, it's you're taking advantage of people that are, I don't want to say gullible, but like prone to suggestion,
Yeah.
that maybe wouldn't have or shouldn't necessarily go in that direction or buy that product, or
Well, and yeah, product. You're right. I mean, whether it be Cutco knives or God,
Mhm.
they're selling a product,
Yeah, it's
and
like
their
if
sales.
you have a need or a want, you should just go look for it.
Yeah,
Like the whole pushy sales marketing crap is,
yeah. It does. I mean, I took sales classes when I was in college, and my understanding of sales is that as a salesperson, your goal is to connect somebody with a product that they need or a product they didn't realize they needed.
yeah,
Not to force something on somebody, but to like, hey, this is the best fit for you. I'll bet you didn't realize this existed. And there have been people who have convinced me of that. Like, hey, this is actually this is a good product. This is a good idea. This is something I actually need or something I wanted that I didn't know existed. That's the function of a salesperson. That's good sales.
yeah,
But to sell something to somebody who doesn't need it, to find some old lady who already has a functioning vacuum cleaner and sell her a Kirby vacuum because it's better. Like that's bullshit. Like if she's had dozens of vacuums that have broken over the years and she's lamenting like, oh my god, I've spent like thousands of dollars on these crappy vacuums and they keep breaking, and then somebody comes along and is like, hey, you need a Kirby vacuum because they never break. Like,
oh wait, my vacuum's a piece of shit, I need a Kirby vacuum.
yeah, well, you could buy them at Goodwill, fortunately. um it same
My
thing with
vacuum sucks. Wait, it doesn't suck, so that sucks.
well, it's the same thing with Cutco. Like Cutco's very expensive. If Walmart kitchen utensils work for you, then fine. But if you are spending a lot of money because maybe you're like a professional chef or something, or you do a lot of cooking and using utensils and they're constantly breaking and wearing out, like, yeah, Cutco's actually kind of a legit way to go. It's expensive, but the expense is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like they are super. I've had my Cutco knives for 20 years.
Yeah.
Never once had to sharpen them, and they're still sharper than anything. So they are really good.
They are. Well, okay, you're already giving a sales pitch right there.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how it's supposed to be done. It's like if you actually believe in a product,
Mm-hmm.
and you come across somebody that you can actually like connect a need with this thing that you actually know about from experience. Like in that aspect, I can sell things to people. When it comes to something that like they don't necessarily need, I can't do it. I don't have the conscience to
Yeah, or if
do
they
it.
can't
Yeah.
afford it, right? Like
Yeah.
if you don't have any money, the best sales people direct people to other companies to best fit. Like
Yeah.
if you don't have money, right? You're living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, I'm a Cutco salesperson. I'm going to be like, well, you know what? The Dollar Tree has like pretty okay stuff. Um, come back. Here's my card. Come back when you have the money, and I'll sell you some Cutco knives. or whatever. Even if a salesperson directs you to their competitor, that's a sign of a good salesperson. Like a salesperson that actually cares about things, like cares about you as the customer. And that's something that, like, about multi-level marketing, like the Melaleuca stuff where you have to buy things over and over again. I get where they're coming from. In order to sell a product, you have to have used a product. You have to understand it. And yeah, maybe they missed the mark in that regard. Like in principally, like, it makes sense. You should be using their product so you have some stories to tell. Like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, I've been using this this laundry detergent for like 2 years, and I'm using like this a thimble sized cup for every single load, and it's freaking amazing. Like legit stories you can tell people. But the requirement to buy things indiscriminately, like a dollar amount, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like just simply spending a certain amount of money feels very skeevy.
Well, and with me, a lot of the times what I'm selling things based on is the thrift value, right? Like one of the products I tout the most is one that you turned me on to, and it's that Turkish shaving soap.
Oh yeah.
And I, like, how much was that? Like $12 for a box of like 8?
Yeah.
Or something.
Like $4 per
$4.
tube, like cylinder of that stuff.
Oh yeah, like whatever it is. Like I bought a case of those in 2016. I gave away like 3 of them, and I still have like 3 left. And I shave my head every other day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we would be good salespeople for that company.
Yeah.
Oh,
but what's the point in, like they're so cheap, like.
And that's something that I feel is kind of missed, I guess, or a missed opportunity, or something that's lacking. Like word of mouth is the best sales, or, well, it could also be your undoing as a company if you get bad press, word of mouth wise.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, people that you trust, that who use a product, who are like, oh man, this is great, like, you got to try this, is far more valuable than the pushy salesperson that knocks on your door at like 8:30 at night and tries to sell you something. Like somebody you don't know. And that's something companies ought to understand. Like if you're a regular customer, you're a salesperson at the same time, because you believe in that product. And it would encourage companies to continue to improve the product. I don't know. Man.
Huh. Hey, I just had a thought. Is polyamory the multi-level marketing of dating?
Ooh. Oh man. Who? I mean,
there's a lot of tendrils to it.
That's true, and a lot of angles. Like poly or non-monogamy is varied. Like it's kind of personal. It's different for everybody. And it goes kind of back to contract, like contracts and stuff like that. It's personal. Like you build your own bear, I guess. Ugh.
In a workshop.
Yeah, build a bear workshop. But yeah, like people in non-monogamy and polyamory tend to kind of like construct their own set of rules. So there's no like, there is no foundation, I guess. It's kind of like, okay, whatever. Some people are they're exclusive, or some people just don't care. It's kind of whatever fits the needs of the people involved. I mean, I don't know if it necessarily ties into multi-level marketing. I mean, it kind of, I guess.
Yeah, maybe not like a direct correlation to anything, but it was a random thought I had.
Shower thoughts are always welcome.
Yeah.
So to see Casey and I taking showers, you should subscribe.
Go to our OnlyFans.
Yeah, go to OnlyFans. I got the webcam in the shower stall. Yeah. Be a Patreon, like that could happen. Oh man, no, it won't.
No, we don't have an OnlyFans. No.
So maybe we ought to.
Well, they were gonna like do away with all the porn stuff, and then like there was so much backlash and like jokes about how they were gonna like go bankrupt in a week, and and they like backed off on it. But I don't know, like maybe the damage has been done. Like, I mean, I don't follow OnlyFans or anything, but like, you know, when companies do stuff like that, I feel like it's kind of a death knell. Like even if they backtrack, it's like already too late. Like people are like, oh yeah.
Well, yeah, because they don't have faith in the company anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, although this could be like a new Coke kind of thing. Well, that's all.
I mean, it's kind of like how Craigslist is like just a joke now. Like it's nothing but scams.
Oh man, I miss Craigslist dating. Oh, that was so good. Fucking. Oh man, I've got some strong feelings about that. And I'll try to keep them to myself. Yeah. Yeah.
I always thought some of the, I don't know, what do you call them, categories or whatever, were kind of funny, like miss encounters or close calls or whatever they called it, where it was like somebody would be like, you were in aisle 3 looking at cereal and you farted and you thought no one heard it, but I did, and I winked at you. Give me a call. Yeah.
That's misconnections. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the only thing that exists nowadays on Craigslist. Like, yeah, there used to be casual encounters and dating, like men for women, women for men, men for men, whatever. All kinds of stuff. And yeah, it's all gone thanks to McCain. Fuck you, McCain. Rest in peace, bitch.
Oh, that was his doing?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it actually goes back to Backpage. There's a whole story tale behind that. And the founders of Backpage like were very critical of the McCains back in the day, and they had a vendetta against them. And so the long game, a bill got passed for the children, and it essentially made all of the dating stuff on Craigslist illegal. So they had to shut it down.
Well, it's a good thing consenting adults aren't able to have sex.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Score a win for America.
America, fuck yeah. Oh man. Yeah, oh man. And I think I did do a little minute microscopy about that back in the day. The origins of the why OkCupid sucks now. And Backpage is pretty much gone, and
OkCupid's a dating app, right?
Yeah, but they made changes kind of on the same timeline as the federal changes, which I think is kind of like giving in to that. I mean, it used to be very different. You could DM people. You can't do that now. You have to simultaneously like each other, and then you can send a message. It's it's a mess. Terrible. But you know,
I think a lot of that comes from unsolicited dick pics, though.
well, it is odd that it coincides with the passage of this particular legislation, though. Those changes. Craigslist. Oh my god, I missed that. That was great.
What did you do back in the days of like bulletin boards? Did you like do ASCII character penises? Like,
well, yeah, you could do that. You could do ASCII images. Like I remember printing out the picture, like the pinup pic of the girl with the tits on the dot matrix printer. Yeah, we used to do that back in the day. BBSs though, yeah, you could meet people. Although back then it was like 100-to-1 ratio of dudes to chicks.
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah. So if there was a woman on a BBS, they were hunted to extinction.
That reminds me, up in Everett, Washington, at a senior center, they have a thing called the Sausage Fest, and I think it's the most hilarious thing. It's like a church.
I'm gonna guess it's actual sausage, right?
Yeah, it's a freaking like senior center church thing, and it's like Everett Sausage Fest, and I'm like,
is it like Sausage Fest? Like winking? Oh man. I mean,
this episode went all over the place.
Yeah. Well, old people have this kind of like assumption that, you know, if you're like 80 years old or something, that you're just a sweet person. You're all sweet. No, you're a fucking horn dog like everybody, probably more so. I mean, because
Jagger's 78 and he's got a 4-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, like old people are horny too, and they do some crazy stuff. Like I'm not gonna delve any deeper into that, but they do.
Are one of your poly relationships on the epsilon level, like some senior citizens?
No, or not anymore. But you know, hey.
Well, yeah, COVID restrictions. You can't get into the rest home now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, check her off the list.
Demonetized.
Oh man. I don't know. I don't know why people freak out so much about sex. Like it's some kind of bad thing. Like
people do have a lot of hang-ups. Yeah,
they do. And I don't want to blame religion, but I'm going to blame religion.
Oh yeah.
I think it kind of is behind a lot of that. And then the state, because the state parallels religion in a lot of places too. You know, in places like the US, they claim they don't, but they do. So yeah.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, yeah, like you said, I think this went in a lot of different directions.
Yeah. Thanks for deep sink diving into multi-level marketing, sausage fest,
sex with elders,
multi-level dating.
Yeah, and regulations,
contracts.
Contracts. That's a big one. No,
Ashcroft.
I wish I had some chips to throw down when I said that. Ashcroft. But they're all connected. This is the thing. Once you see the connections, it becomes a farce. It's a joke. It'll set you free. Yeah. I'll just leave it at that.
It'll free your willy.
Free your mind. Oh man, who did that song?
Every 60s band.
No, there's a song called Free Your Mind. It's in the 90s. Oh man, it'll come to me.
I don't know. I don't recall that one.
Okay, hang on a second. Before we wrap things up, I've got to look this up.
Free your mind. I don't know. I feel like that's very Woodstocky.
Hold on.
Not like Right Said Fred, is it?
In Vogue. Free Your Mind. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So In Vogue, I wish, someday we're going to make enough money. Oh, by the way, patreon.com/KSMVidcast. More beer. Patreon.com/KSMVidcast. You could give us a few ducats. And we might be able to fund having En Vogue at the end of this episode. Yeah.
Ducats or ruples or pesos or yen or
Bitcoin or
dinar.
Hell, even a Dogecoin. I'm so desperate. Oh man. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was a pretty good conversation. So thanks for sticking it out with us. And there's going to be a song coming on, which will be distinctly not In Vogue. It's going to be
multi-level.
Multi-level. Oh man. Oh, that's a challenge. Okay. Challenge accepted.
Oh, we've got a few multi-level songs.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today. And this was a good one.
Yeah.
This is really good.
Thanks to our fan.
Yeah. And
who
we will definitely
may or may not be giving favors to. That's not something that every fan will get. So.
Well, for the right price. Or if you ask nicely to me, I might give you favors. I've been known to do that from time to time.
I'll pass the groupies off onto the poly guy.
Yeah, you're about to be married, so you don't get groupies. I mean, unless you're a married person that's non-monogamous, then you can have the groupies too.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. All right. Okay, sure. I'll happily take them off your hands. Well, this has gone down a completely different path. Hopefully everybody enjoys it. And yeah. I guess that's it.
Nanu.
Have a good night, everybody.